And there's that one. All right, Jan. I want to start out by saying thank you for your time today and being willing to sit down with us and talk to us about your service over there in Vietnam. Um, we'll start out with some just very basic information about you and your family and stuff. So, starting out with just where were you born
I was born here in Battle Creek, Michigan,
and when was that?
September 3rd, 1947.
Okay. Who were your parents and what did they do for a living?
Well, both my parents are passed, but I don't really know my real father. But my stepfather was just a factory worker, and he's passed. And my mother was a clerk in an insurance company downtown, and she's passed. So that's about all I know of those two. It's been quite a while since they've been alive.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I have an older sister that's 10 years older than I am, and a brother 9 years older, and they're both passed. And I have two other brothers that are twins, and they're a year older than I am, and they're both living.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of all those family members, do you know of any of them having military service?
The oldest brother that's passed was in the Navy, and then my other older brother, that's the twin, he served in Vietnam and in the Marine Corps.
And now, do you have any college experience at all?
Yes, I have about a year and a half of Kellogg Community College. I was there about 6 months, and then I got drafted, and then I came back and went back to school part-time, and then I realized I needed some money. You know, I had to get a job, so I never completed my associate's degree. And I was kind of a self-taught engineer now, working so many years in the engineering department.
Awesome. That seems like a difficult field to be self-taught in.
Yeah, but you know, I had a little bit in high school, and but then my wife and I started a business. She started the business, and then when I got laid off at Clark Equipment, she hired me, and we were in business together for about 35 years, doing offset printing and warehouse and distribution and packaging design because of my background in engineering. I did a lot of concept packaging for Kellogg Company, helping them out. So I've kind of done a variety of things.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the packaging when it comes to marketing, people don't realize.
Oh no, there's a lot of work going into those, designing this stuff.
So before you you were in Kellogg Community College before you were drafted. Did you have any kind of jobs that you were working before you were drafted?
Just delivering office supplies for a small office supply company in downtown Battle Creek. Did that for about maybe 6 months, and then I got my letter.
When were you drafted?
It would be 67, probably around September 67.
Did you have a choice to which branch? How did that go? Tell me how. I've obviously never been drafted, so.
No, I just got a letter and said report, and I reported, and then they loaded us up on a bus and took us to Fort Knox, Kentucky. So that would be Army. I think if you requested to go in like the Marines or something, they would give you a little extension before you had to report. That's what my brother did, and he wanted to go in the Marines because he got like a 30-day extension before he had to show up. But me, I just took the Army and headed for Kentucky with about 15 guys I actually knew from town here. We all loaded up and went down there.
Awesome. I'm sure knowing some of the guys that you were at least going to be in basic with helped the transition, because that can be a pretty violent transition. I'm sure being drafted, going out of nowhere to now you're in the military,
and not knowing anybody, so it did help. You know, I had a few friends.
So let's just get right into it. What was basic like then? Obviously,
Actually, I didn't think basic was that hard. Difficult to get used to. It was just, getting up early in the morning and running a mile before breakfast. Wasn't used to that, but yeah, I adapted quite well to the basic training. Then after we got out of basic, I volunteered for that leader preparation course before I went to AIT, which trained me to be a squad leader. So when I went into the AIT, which was tank unit, we learned how to operate tanks, and then I got my orders to stay there at Fort Knox in the armor school, where we scheduled and taught officers from West Point how to operate tanks. So I did that probably about 4 months or so, and then I got orders to go to Vietnam.
And what was exactly your MOS? You remember?
81E20, which was illustrator.
Illustrator.
Yeah.
So how does an illustrator get into armor school?
I have no idea.
That's the first question I have
Yep.
listening to this is
Oh,
I was wondering how that one all transpired.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe because of a little bit of art background and engineering background, but how I ended up in tanks, I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Okay. All right. So you passed that school, you completed that. So after you got done with all your schooling, did you immediately get sent to Vietnam?
Well, after working in the armor school for 4 months, then I got orders to go there.
Okay. Did it tell you what you were gonna do?
No.
So you didn't know if you were gonna stay in the armory side or go back to illustrator, or maybe there's even a third option.
No,
going
when
on?
I arrived in Vietnam, we landed in Tan Son Nhut Air Base, got off the airplane, and it's that heat and the smell, it just hits you like a brick wall. And then I think I realized, this is not a nice place to be, because I could see rows and rows of caskets stacked there on the tarmac, and that's when I started getting a little nervous. It wasn't so bad flying over there, but once I arrived there, I got a little nervous. But they sent me down to Saigon, downtown Saigon, and says, here's where you're going to stay, and we'll get back with you. So I was there like a week with nothing to do and no place to go, and then they finally gave me orders to go down in I Corps or 4 Corps to Canton in the Delta. That's when I joined the PSYOP group.
Wow, yeah, that's a powerful first impression, right?
Mhm,
Like
yeah.
here you are, young and fresh, obviously not being a military veteran at all, and your first experiences is just rows and rows of caskets.
Yep.
I'm sure that was a lasting impact.
It
for you.
is. I think about it all the time. There's not one day that goes by that I don't think about Vietnam.
Yeah.
Certain smells, certain sounds, just brings back memories.
Yeah.
And then down in Canton, all night long you could hear artillery. You're just kind of wondering, which one's going to hit us. Then New Year's Eve, they tried to infiltrate the airstrip down there, and that was an eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping out of your bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black, and run around trying to find your pants and boots and figure out what's happening. So luckily we survived that. And then flying around the C-47s, dumping out leaflets over the villages or in the U-10s that I mentioned, like a Piper Cub, just going out and scouting. I guess that's what we did. We didn't run a tape recorder or any leaflets. We just went out and looked. And just, avoid being shot down. That was my priority. Yeah.
I would say that's a just priority there.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned psyops.
Yep.
I think is what you said. Could you explain what exactly that was? Are you allowed to explain what that was?
Yeah, it was psychological warfare. You know, they printed up propaganda leaflets, trying to talk the Viet Cong to giving up, you know, and go back to your families and so forth. So those were printed up, and that's what we threw out of this C-47s, the old cargo planes, DC-8, I think they were called, DC-8 or DC-10s.
The slow flying bus.
Yep. You know, there was a chute in the back of the tail section where we just dumped cases and cases of these leaflets out.
Did you feel that was effective?
You know, I don't know. I couldn't tell because I was up there, and you know, whoever dug those out of the jungle and read them, and yeah, I don't know if it was effective or not, but they've been doing it for years before we even got there or I got there. So.
I'm sure that made it a little difficult to do your job as well, not knowing if you were helping.
Yeah.
You know, like here you are dumping leaflets out the back through the jungles that you might be doing something or could be doing nothing at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that your own psychological warfare, I guess, on your own self, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you ever have to interrogate anybody down there?
No, I didn't have the training to interrogate, but you know, after PSYOP in the South, I went up in Saigon in the interrogation center. It was called CMIC, Combined Military and Interrogation Center.
Okay.
And I just went after prisoners, and that if I wasn't doing that, you know, whatever information they got from a prisoner sketched out, we kind of had to make it nice and neat and finalize it so it was legible, and then that information was sent off to someone else, which I don't know who it was, but I'd go after the prisoners and deliver them to an interrogator, and then when they were done, they just sent me out there to get them and take them back and lock them up. So.
Wow. I'm still trying to trace the MOS path. It's Illustrator, Armorer, it's PSYOPs, it's Info. Yeah. Wow, you had a career.
Oh yeah. Maybe it had to do in the leaflets. Print those up, and then the interrogations, you know, making their sketches a little neater. So I don't know, but never really utilized that illustration ability.
just a placeholder essentially, and for the military, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, obviously the leaflets that you were writing up in there and that were in Vietnamese, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I would think it'd defeat the purpose if they were in English.
Yeah.
So do you speak Vietnamese? Do you? No.
Just a few words, and I don't even remember that now. You know. But no, I wasn't fluent in Vietnamese.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just simply had the task of just dispersing.
Yep.
No. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Tet. I think this is a big one that we want to talk about here. So, obviously, that was the January or the New Year, Lunar New Year for them that this happened. Where exactly in country were you when Tet went on?
I was we'd been in Canto down the south.
Okay.
Because of that night that they caught a lot of VC coming in on trucks, deuce and halves, in the airstrip there, and they were headed off by our people, and luckily they didn't get any farther than that. That was quite a night. That night, you know, a lot of noise, activity, and we just kind of hunkered down our bunker and just kind of prayed that nothing was going to land in there. Mm-hmm. I was standing with two other guys outside of our compound, and the kid went by with a satchel charge and threw that at us. And luckily, two of us had just turned and walked away, and probably 3 seconds later, then he threw that satchel charge and it hit the third guy that was with us, but he survived. So that was kind of an eye-opener, you know. That's probably one of the scariest moments that I can remember.
How did it alarm you that they were using kids?
Oh yeah, Yeah, they use kids for everything. Put acid in Coke bottles and put the caps back on, and offer it to a GI, and yeah, there's a lot of things going on.
And again, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience patrolling in Vietnam?
Oh, I was on guard duty.
Guard duty? Okay.
That jungle at night. You don't have street lights like you have around here. I mean, it is dark. I mean, you can barely see your hand in front of your face. So you don't know what's out there, how close it's getting. But that was interesting being on the guard duty. You wasn't trained for that either, but it's just like a duty that they needed somebody. So Gillett, we need you on guard duty tonight. So
the needs of the Army, huh?
yeah.
So, and obviously, I'm sure during TET you held multiple guard post duties.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through a little bit of like just the mindset that you would have to put yourself in to do that. Obviously, you witnessed the intrusion.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like you said, they made it to the airfield. You had seen this large force of Viet Cong make it very deep, do multiple attacks across. I know the American government paints it as TET was largely a failure in the sense of the Vietnam, and it was in the terms of military targets. But that I feel like there's psychological damage that was done there. That's where really the win of TET was for the Vietnam or Vietnamese. For you going out on post, were you ever worried every night that this could be another TET night? That tonight might be another night that they could do something like that?
Oh yeah. Always looked over my shoulder. Even today, I can't sit in a restaurant or whatever with my back to the door because I gotta be able to see what's coming in. And loud noises, unexpected. 4th of July is not my favorite holiday, and unexpected noises, and then certain smells and so forth. Yeah, it was quite an eye opener, going on guard duties because not knowing whether you're gonna make it back or not. Like we'd hear artillery fire all night long, and you just wonder if one of those rounds are gonna come into your compound.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help too because I'm sure the infantry wasn't too far away from you.
No.
So I'm sure you guys heard or saw the damage of what it was like to be out there and engaging with the enemy in that. And I'm sure that was a fear back in the rear, like.
Yeah, even the civilians, the Vietnamese civilians, you don't know whether they're a friend or foe. I've heard a lot of stories, your barber cut your hair during the day and try to cut your throat at night, because he was on the wrong side.
And I guess a little bit of another family question I should have asked a little bit earlier. How did your family feel when you were drafted into the service?
I don't know. My brothers were out of state. They were up in Minnesota at college when I left, and I think the relationship with my stepfather, it was a pretty good relationship, but at that time he had married another woman because my mother had passed away. So I think it bothered my father, but not her. She had her own children that she was concerned about. We weren't her favorites.
Okay. So really it was just like your brothers is really what it came down to.
Yeah. Huh. And my sister, she was still alive then, but didn't communicate much back and forth.
It's always interesting to paint out the family history of a veteran. Some have a lengthy list, and some are just a spur of the moment. I just got my number was called.
Yeah. I had no girlfriend, so I had no girl to write home or receive letters from, or packages of cookies and stuff like that. So
I'm sure that had to hurt morale. Because I when I was deployed, that was like the one nice thing, mail call. Everybody was looking forward to mail call. But it sounds like in your case, that would have been the one thing you didn't care about at all was mail call.
I just got used to it, not receiving anything. And even like holidays today, I miss so many of them that to me a holiday is just another day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me.
Were you upkept then on the news? A lot of people, obviously, once you get over there to Vietnam, you get little pieces of information or whatnot. But it's not like you have NBC at your own TV or whatnot at night. So did you keep up on current events, or were you pretty isolated to just what was happening in your particular area of Vietnam?
No, I didn't hear of anything, back in the States. We had the Stars and Stripes, but I remember reading that, a couple times. That's when I found out that one of my good friends in basic training was killed. That's when I found that out. He was listed in there, but as far as what's going on in the States, I had no idea. Not until I got back, then I started hearing stories about all the riots and the picketing and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. So let's go to your interrogation unit. This is something I'll admit I have no knowledge on. I would have initially thought this would have been military police that would have been doing this kind of work. So could you just explain to us what was an interrogation unit? What was it that you did for them as well?
Well, like I said, I'd be sent off. You got to go here to this cell and get this prisoner and walk across the courtyard, take him to a room where he can get interrogated, and then when they were done, I'd go get him and take him back to a cell. But one incident, I had to drive across Saigon with an uncovered Jeep to pick up a Viet Cong officer, and I got there to pick him up, and they had him locked up in a room. When I got there, the door was singed, and I said, "What in the world went on here?" Well, we tried to fill the Coleman lantern while it was still burning and tipped it over. Well, they caught the door on fire, and behind that door was an officer, Viet Cong. So when I went after him with handcuffs and a gunny sack to put over his head to put him in that Jeep, uncovered Jeep, and drive across Saigon, he kind of come unglued. He didn't know what was in store for him after being trying to burn to death. But
sorry, it's not.
Yeah. And so I got him across Saigon, but every time we stopped, the Vietnamese would run up and want to know, if he's the Viet Cong, because it's uncovered Jeep. You can't hide him. And I just had to talk my way through it and keep going. So until we got him back to our compound and locked him up, and then whatever happened to him after that, I don't know.
I don't think it could have been much worse than having your door caught on fire, a gunny sack, dragged through the street.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that's one way to make people talk.
Oh yeah.
Now, was it always male prisoners that you worked with, or did you ever have to deal with females?
They had some females, but I never dealt with them. I never had to go after them. I think they had one female officer, but I didn't have to go after her, take her to the interrogator.
Okay. Did you have any special rules or anything like that was laid out for your treatment of a prisoner?
We couldn't manhandle them. I mean, they got manhandled out in the jungle. And, you hear a lot of horror stories there, but no, we had to treat them like humans, And they were pretty easy to get along with. You just kind of had to keep looking over your shoulder. They give you this little smile, but it's like your day's coming, or I'm going to get back at you or whatever. But it's like they're looking right through you.
Yeah. Yeah, I only had to deal with prisoners in Camp Pendleton, so they were American prisoners.
Yeah.
So did you ever have to put body armor on them when you took them out and transported them or anything?
No, actually it was a large courtyard with rooms all the way around, and I'd pick them up here and take them over over there where there was a room with a table, and a couple of chairs. And
Same compound.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was always they always told us if you take prisoners, there's a whole list of stuff that you have to do to keep them safe and protected. But obviously, if you're moving them on the same compound, you could get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, one area I do want to talk about with these oral histories that I've been doing is the use of Agent Orange. And I know directly it doesn't sound like you might have had any use for Agent Orange, but do you know of if you worked in any area that used to store Agent Orange or possibly was cleaned out with the use of Agent Orange?
Yeah, down in Canton, it was at the airstrip because I remember seeing barrels of this stuff. And then if you look at a map where it was sprayed, both the locations I was in, Canton and Saigon, it was sprayed all over. In which I have cancer from Agent Orange because it was just in the air, so I was exposed to it. So I have cancer.
Does that make you angry?
No. Luckily, it's not a real progressive cancer. So, I'm just, with the doctors, we just keep an eye on it, but no, I'm not angry.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm really not angry about being over in Vietnam either. I mean, it's just kind of, I don't think it was their fault that, they're in war and we were just over there trying to help. And they're victims of circumstance, I call it, so.
Well, I was going to ask this a little bit later, but I'll ask it now. Do you feel like you were successful then in Vietnam?
No.
No?
No, I don't think so. No, it wasn't a victory. I mean, a lot of guys, they don't even know why they were there. What are we doing here? So, if you don't know why you're there, it's not a victory.
Would you have do you think the American government could have done better by its military service members by leading them better?
Probably, I always say, we're trying to be a big brother to every country, and you can't do that. It doesn't work. So, and if you're going to do it, you better do it right. Get in there and take care of business and get out. And we didn't.
Yeah, that's what a lot of my veterans keep saying. Is that was the issue with Vietnam, was we tried to fight it, as they said, with their hand tied behind their back.
Yeah.
So that's something I'd always like to ask that question.
Yeah.
Do you feel successful with your service?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about luck? Do you believe in luck at all, Gene?
Yeah.
Do you think that's what maybe got you through Vietnam? Was luck?
I think so, because I constantly, I feel guilty that I came back in one piece and alive, where a lot of guys didn't. So, yeah, I'd say I'm lucky.
At least physically in one piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the untold story with Vietnam. Is there's a lot of, mental damage and a mental healing that was never allowed to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one person says, why don't you just get over it? Well, that's something you don't get over. You'll never forget it.
Yeah.
You'll never get over it.
How do you get over seeing rows upon rows of caskets on the side of a airstrip the very first day you land in country?
Yeah, I've seen victims of, napalm, which is not a pretty sight.
I can't imagine.
And, you don't forget that stuff.
Or the smell. I was there when Benghazi, and I remember the human flesh and that smell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very distinct. I don't think I could get over that.
No. It's like, when I was remodeling a house, I'd go to take stuff to the dump. As soon as you get close to the dump, that smell, it kind of brings back memories real quick. Yeah.
Well, seeing how you live here in Battle Creek, you were saying you're not too far from actually this location where we're doing the oral history. When Fort Custer goes live, does that ever startle you at all?
Oh, when the guys come in for the weekend?
Doing the training and stuff like that?
I can hear them, but it doesn't bother me because I know it's going to come. It's coming.
Okay.
It's like 4th of July, I know it's going to happen, but like my brother that was in the Marines over there, we kind of both just go to bed, you know, and try to fall asleep, and then we don't have to listen to it. Or we'll call each other and say incoming, you know. But he had it worse than I did, a lot worse though.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it that he did?
He was in a howitzer unit, but he also drove ammo truck.
Okay.
So, and he was up north. So yeah, he's seen a lot, and we've never talked about it. Actually, all my friends that were in Vietnam, we've never sat down and talked about it because we just want to forget. And there's a couple people I know that constantly talk about it, want everybody to know. And I said, well, I don't think maybe they really had it bad over there. They just want you to feel like they did. So it's nothing to brag about.
Yeah. It's well, I appreciate you sitting down and talking today with me because this is what. Eventually, I want to be able to tell the story. This allows us to tell history from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So being able to hear these stories and be able to witness history through your eyes as you saw it is incredibly useful in history in general. Did you ever lean on your brother during, like, maybe when you came back after Vietnam because he was another veteran, so you knew, like, I could talk to him, he will understand, versus the civilians, like there was a disconnect?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he knew exactly what I was saying, and I knew exactly what he was saying, but like someone that wasn't there, they don't understand. Like I said, they say, well, why don't you just get over it? I mean, you don't have to be there very long and still have memories that you can't get rid of.
Did you say that was probably the biggest difference when you came back, was that you were basically isolated? Civilians just didn't get it, and you were kind of left over here, especially because your mom had passed, your dad, your stepdad had moved on, your brothers were so you were kind of alone.
Yeah. Yep. And I was kind of quiet. I didn't like being around crowds, and I wasn't real sociable. I didn't go out very often. I've kind of calmed down now. It really doesn't bother me. I just have my memories.
So, did you stay in Vietnam until your service was up? Okay. So your service was over, and then you got shipped all the way back to Battle Creek?
Yeah. Well, I got sent to Fort Ord, California.
Fort Ord. What'd you do there?
Spent 2 nights on a bleachers bench, and then got processed out of the Army.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. And then I flew down to San Diego to visit my sister for a couple of days, and then flew home to Detroit. And then my brother picked me up because at that time my father's other wife, she didn't want to drive to Detroit to get me. So,
did you experience? Because this would have been what, 69? You got back?
Yeah.
That was right when there was a lot of political pushback, a lot of rioting and protesting about the war. Did you experience any of that?
No, I can't remember any, experiences like that, because when I got back, I kind of kept to myself and, really didn't do much for quite a while. No, I don't even remember, even the airports, I don't remember seeing any stuff like that.
Did you advertise being a veteran? Were you proud to be a veteran?
I was proud, but I didn't start wearing, a Vietnam hat until maybe a year ago. I just figured there's no sense of advertising, but my wife's from a military family. Her dad was a senior master sergeant serving in World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. So she's quite patriotic, and always wants me to wear a hat or wear this shirt, or go to programs where they're honoring military individuals. So yeah, I just started wearing my hat probably a year, 2 years ago, because some people were so against it. I don't want to cause any trouble, any problems. So I just keep the experience to myself.
You think if the American people would have been more accepting of Vietnam, you might have been more willing to display your service
Oh yeah,
sooner?
yeah. Which I get chills, when people come home from Iraq, and they're having parades and so forth. I think that's just wonderful. And lately, I've had a lot of people thank me for my service when they see me wearing my head. So it's like I'm catching up. But I do really appreciate these people, and they're young people too. Some of them don't even know what Vietnam was. I made a comment to a waitress in a restaurant because on the ketchup bottle it says so much is being donated from the purchase of this ketchup, and I told the waitress, "Well, that's nice." She says, "Oh, I don't even know what Vietnam is." So the young people really don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't usually hold much space in that history textbook.
Yeah.
Because from the top-down perspective, America lost, so why is it going to drown on something that sees itself as a loss?
Yeah.
I personally don't think Vietnam was a loss, at least from the veterans, because you made it home, right? You did your job, you succeeded, and you followed through with what you said you would do for your country.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that leaves these gaps where people are like, "Oh, I didn't know that about Vietnam."
Yeah.
There's so much that goes on in this particular war that it just gets glossed over.
Yeah.
So I know Vietnam infantry units, they talk a lot about like not making friends just because like people, you just don't know how long someone's going to last or be around. Your particular case, it sounds like you were a little bit more behind the wire, a little bit more security, not necessarily so much out there in the thick of things. So did you make friends while you were over there at all?
I did, but I can't remember any of the guys' names. I mean, I can visually see their faces, but I didn't make a lot of friends either because some of the duties I had, I wasn't even around them. I might have been with one guy or nobody. So, and I know some guys, they write home or they have reunions with their buddies. So I don't remember mine.
Yeah, it was kind of kept your nose to the grind, and we're looking at the just surviving and getting to the next day type mentality.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that at all either.
No.
So you get back from Vietnam. Were you aware of any VA benefits that were offered to you? Did they give you any classes, any type of schooling?
No. I just enrolled in the VA here probably, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. My brother-in-law, he kept telling me that I should. He got a medical discharge from the military, and he worked with a lot of patients that, he said I should sign up at the VA, for the benefits and so forth. And I said, well, those guys out there are worse off than me, let them have the service and the money. But then I finally did it, and I'm happy with the VA. You hear a lot of horror stories, but I've been treated very well here in Battle Creek and in Ann Arbor, the VA there. So
yeah, I love the VA here.
yeah,
it's a very beautiful campus too.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That. So did you ever get to use like your GI Bill or anything like that?
No.
No.
Which I should have.
Yeah.
I was a little restless when I got home, and I just had to get a job and work. I didn't have time to go back to school.
Did you feel like you lost 2 years of your life by going over to Vietnam and being drafted? And that you were just trying to like make up for lost time when you got back?
Yeah, because then had no idea what was going on in the States there for that year I was gone.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like trying to catch up. When I came home, I grew a beard and long hair just so I'd fit in.
meet everybody else.
Yeah. Hey, that guy's got short hair. I bet he was in the military, So I had to grow long hair.
Yeah. It's one thing I didn't realize, and my wife points it out to me. We have a certain way we walk, a certain way we talk, a certain way we act. We can just pick each other out of a room.
Mm-hmm.
You can and like that, the haircut, and immediately you can just tell. So, now again, I know you didn't do a full 4 years or even more. 2 years is all you did in the service, but do you feel that changed you as a person?
Oh yeah.
And then how so?
I think I grew up a lot. More responsibility, being more responsible. And I really think everybody should go in the military for at least 2 years, like maybe right out of high school. You learn a lot. You realize a little hard work's not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I have no regrets, and I learned a lot.
The pressure of standing guard and having to be something bigger than yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something that you have to experience that in order to appreciate that. I feel I'd agree.
Yeah.
Now, I think you've touched on this a little bit, and I don't want to get into. I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that. But do you think your service, what you experienced, the trauma that you've experienced, the heartaches, all of the stuff that goes into that, changed how you interact or you react with people? I know you mentioned you don't sit with your back towards a door, you don't trust anybody. So do you chalk that up as being that's Vietnam, that's my military service? Not saying that you necessarily faulted or anything like that, but you've noticed I've changed because of this.
Oh yeah, I used to be quiet before the military. I've come out of my shell quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you feel like, can you elaborate what it is that makes you not want to trust people in a sense? Is it just because you heard the stories of like infiltrators and impossible, the Tet Offensive and things like that, and you just you just don't know, and that just uncertainty is what's led you to I would rather just close off?
Yeah, well, the unknown, what's behind you, so I just sit where I can view everything, and then, like trusting somebody, I want to know the whole truth, I don't want anything hidden. I don't want any surprises. But,
cut and dry.
Yeah.
Straight to the point type mentality.
Yeah, I don't have time for, like...
You see that with a lot of veterans. I think we're all, in a sense, I think we all get tired of the hurry up and wait game that we spend in the military. So, look, I don't want to waste a half hour. Let's just tell me what you need and let's get to it type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've noticed it with myself too. You're not the only one with this. Being in college, I have been very blunt in a few times, and where people have had to tell me I've had to rein back my bluntness. They need a little bit more fluff with what I say. They can't be so direct. And I'm like,
or like you get in a line, you have to wait, and people bitch about, God, is this line ever going to move? Hey, join the military. You'll get used to it. You know how to cope with it.
Well, at least we're not standing in the sun.
That's right.
At least we're not on fire. You learn to look for the bright side of things.
Yeah.
So after going to a war zone, and again, I think you've touched on this a little bit, but has your opinion or your feelings about war changed? For example, some people are like, gung-ho for war. I've heard some people quickly be like, well, just nuke them, get rid of them. You'll hear statements like that, and it draws alarm to me, where I immediately perk up and I'm like, you must have never have served. You have no idea what it means to even say those words or what that could actually mean in a situation. And I do feel that it's changed me in some ways. So do you have situations similar to that where you're like, I do think now, after going to Vietnam, witnessing war, seeing the coffins on the tarmac and hearing the horror stories and the explosions, I do have a different opinion about warfare.
Yeah, I think there's a better way to solve problems, because there's too many innocent people getting hurt because of the decisions certain people make. You know, war would be the last thing, especially nowadays with the nuclear capabilities. I mean, nobody's going to win.
No.
You know, there'll be no winners in this game.
Yeah, it's that mutual destruction that's out
Yeah.
there, you know. And I think the same thing when you look at other conflicts that are currently going on in today's world. It's not the easier solution is keeping the talks at the table, keeping the talks open. It's not going to be solved at the end of a gun.
Yeah.
You know. So, what was one thing you would say from your time over there, which, you know, a year, correct?
Yeah.
About a year. Your year that you were over there, that stands out, that just is going to be the one, when you think of Vietnam, that's the image that pops in your head from over there.
What was the question?
So, like, when someone brings up Vietnam or talks about Vietnam, immediately you think of a particular moment. It could be a briefing. It could be it could be the coffins again. It could be something like that from Vietnam. That just the mention of the word Vietnam is enough to trigger it for you. That has that big of an impact. Because I know you talked also about smells and things like that too. So
Probably maybe a senseless death.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of that over there. Just some people getting in the line of fire, you know, shouldn't have been there.
Yeah. Makes it a little difficult.
Yeah.
So, and then I personally think veterans today are treated very well. We're very blessed. This is obviously the work of you guys, Vietnam veterans who had a horrendous experience, both returning to this country and trying to get aid from its government, and that. How do you feel today's veterans are treated? And again, I know you talked a little bit about the parades, but in general, the veterans in general, how do you feel that they're served?
Well, I think the ones sleeping on the street are being taken care of very well, and they're putting other people ahead of them that didn't serve their country. These are guys that, you know, gave their lives up for 2, 3, 4, many years, and now they're sleeping on the streets because the government isn't recognizing their contribution to this country. But I think they're being taken they're making progress, you know, the government with these veterans, but some of them are so mentally disabled now that they're just so used to the conditions that they're in and living conditions that I don't think they even want to be helped because they're comfortable the way that they made themselves. But there's a lot of work ahead of the government to take care of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. There's homeless veterans. It's a hard one to see, you know, especially because here in Michigan alone, look at all these abandoned buildings that we have.
Oh yeah.
We could. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, they've slept in foxholes.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, something with just a non-leaky roof over their head would be tremendous and a step in the right direction. I think we could do a lot to help them more in that regard.
Yeah.
So as we come to a kind of a close here with your oral history, Gene, is there anything in particular that you would like to add more to this? Anything that we didn't necessarily talk about or explain, or?
No, I think that covers it. But you know, I appreciate what you're doing to bring this out in the open and archive this material so that our generation coming up can understand, you know, what Vietnam veterans went through, Korean veterans, you know, all the military veterans, because it's not being told very well, and yeah, I think what you're doing is marvelous.
Well, I thank you for that. I really do think there's something to be said with just going and asking the people that were there what they saw instead of going, well, what do I think happened?
Yeah.
We have you guys are still here that were there. You know, it's one thing if, okay, the American Revolution, we don't have those veterans anymore, right? So we were kind of left with whatever's left in the historical archives and then making an educated assumption to that. But right now, we have a way of being able to tell a much more complete picture of history if we just simply come out here and talk to you guys. Especially, and you talked about it a little bit ago about how you guys don't want to talk about your service. And that's because I think a lot of it is you guys were told that your service wasn't warranted or wasn't important or what doesn't matter, which is probably the biggest one. And this is a way for me to at least say back to you guys, it did matter. It does matter a lot. And there's a lot of us that want to know a much truer and much more honest opinion of what was it like over there. You know, it wasn't the what is that, Full Metal Jacket type experience where you're in Hanoi City and there's just snipers in the buildings and rebels and or the Forrest Gump and you're walking through neck deep waters. Like there's more to Vietnam. There's a lot more stuff going on in that. So I appreciate you sitting down with me today and talking to me about this. As we come to a close, my last question I have for you is, what is one thing that you wish people knew about the veteran community as a whole? More.
That we're human, you know, we're not animals. Like, you know, we're called baby killers. Well, I don't think that's quite true, but I don't know where they ever got that, you know. But you know, we're human just like anybody else. You know, we did what we were told to do. We took an oath, you know, to the government, to our country, and we did what we were told to do. So, yeah.
Reminding everybody we're human. That's a good one. So, well, thank you for your time, and I'll be talking with you.
Cool. Thanks.
Stop this. And I'll stop.